Welcome to this webinar about multiple approvers and the changes to the approval functionality in RamBase. Today we'll go through an introduction. We'll go through some of the changes that has been made to the approval functionality in RamBase. We'll give a brief demonstration about some of the changes in RamBase. And at the end, we'll open up for some questions from you. My name is Bjarte, and I'll guide you through this webinar today. And we'll look at the changes and the new features for the approval functionality in RamBase. Please note that this webinar is being recorded for training purposes. And at the end of the session, we will have some questions. And feel free to ask questions during the webinar using the chat functionality. Please mute yourself during the webinar, but you can unmute yourself towards the end if you have some questions. In the approval functionality in RamBase, we have automated the approval requests by having some default approvers to approval rules. This means that for each rule, one has to define at least one default approver, but you can also choose multiple default approvers for one rule. The ones chosen as default approvers can now change the approver, add another approver, they can deny approval, or delete approval. And there has also been made some changes and added some functionality to the approval application. In the approval configuration, there has been added a new setting. This setting for automatically assigning approval requests to your chosen default approvers. This setting has been turned off, and you will have to actively turn it on. Make sure to choose a default approver, at least one per rule, before you turn this on. We will now have a look at the functionality in RamBase. Now I've entered RamBase and I've opened the purchase order, and I've entered an item on the purchase order. And here we can see that there's a need for approval on this item, and we can see the approval amount. This is where the main change has been for the changes for the approval functionality in RamBase. So what you see here is a bit different than before. So in order to request an approval, I just click on the icon here. And now the approval has been sent to the selected default approver. In this case, it's John Johnson. Now I enter another item on the same purchase order. And in the same way as on the last one, I request an approval for this one as well. Now, as you can see, the icon has changed, but it's different from before. The reason for this is that the user I'm currently on has also been configured to be on the same approval rule as John Johnson. This means that I can also approve this item here on this purchase order, and I can approve it by clicking on the icon as well here. Now entering another purchase order and another purchase order item, I can request an approval also here. You can see that there are two default approvers. When I requested the approval, there are two lines coming up here with two separate icons. Now I can approve the line sent to me. But as what you'll also notice here is that there are it's a new icon here with 3 dots on it. And if you're the default approver, you can change some of this. In this case, I can, for example, delete the other approval for John Johnston, and I'll get a message when that has been done. I can also do some other choices here. I can deny the approval here. And then this has been denied with a message. Another thing you can do is you can add an approver. Then you can select from all of the employees you have. So in this case, I'll send it to Jane. But you can also change the approver. So when you've configured the rules for approval, you can change to another one set up for this approval rule. Now we've also updated the approval application, and you can navigate to the approval application by entering procurement, purchasing, and approvals, or you can just write approval in the program field in RamBase. When entering the approval menu, you'll automatically be set to approval request sent to me. So that's the user you're logged in as. We've added some buttons here on the lower side. And here you'll be automatically set to approval requests sent to me. You can also choose to see all approval requests in the system you're logged into. Or you can choose to see approval requests I can approve. Then you'll also see requests sent to other users, but approval requests you're able to approve since you might be on the same rule as other users as well. And the last one is approval requests that has been sent by me. So the user that is logged in can follow up the requests that has been sent to other users as well. Now we've also added this section at the top where you can select the company you want to be in. Some users have access to multiple companies, and then you can move between them when in the approval application here. The current company you're in will be highlighted in bold, and behind it there will be a number, which is the number of approvals sent to the user in the company. Now here you can approve directly by pressing the approve item icon, and then it will automatically be approved and it will disappear from the list. You can also choose to select multiple documents to approve. When you've selected the ones you want to approve, you can select an action. You can approve them or you can deny them. And you can also add a comment when approving or denying the documents. And when you've approved or denied, they will also disappear from this menu here. Now it's also possible to select the entire page, or you can select from filter, which then means that all of the documents that you have filtered on using the radio buttons will then be selected. And you'll also see on the bottom of the page how many of the documents that have been selected. And then you can go on to approve or deny these documents. Now I've entered another document, a purchase order. If you have several items that require approval, you can go to the context menu and you can select the approvals button on the context menu. You'll then come to this approve overview, and here there will be grouped by the different rules. Now, one of the items, item number 4, corresponds with the first rule here. Now, two other items, item number 2 and item number 6, corresponds with the second rule here. And from here you can request approval for these items. And this means that if there are several items on the same rule, you can request approval for all of them at the same time. If you're also set up as an approver, a default approver, or have access to approving, you'll also have this button here that says View My Pending Approvals. By pressing this button, you'll be redirected to the approval application, and it will be filtered on the document you were directed from. Now from here, you can approve the items in the regular way. You can also approve multiple items from here. Now it's also possible to approve on behalf of others. I can select one of the documents here that I'm not been sent to me. And by selecting approve item, I'll be able to choose who I'm approving on behalf of. When I press enter, I can see that I've approved this. And on the document, I can see I've approved this one, but the request was originally sent to another person. Now we've seen some of the changed features in approving documents and in the approval application. And by entering the approval configuration, we'll see the rules that govern these approvals. Here we can see some of the rules that have been set up for the test database. By clicking on them, you can see what kind of users are set up for the different rules. Now, here we can see that the setting for automatically assigning approval requests to default approvers has been turned on for this test database and for this rule. Now, you have to make sure that you select at least one default approver here before you activate this rule. If no default approver is selected when you turn this on, the functionality won't work as intended. And as you can see, you can select multiple default approvers. Now, if a document is created and it's within the restrictions for this rule, both of the selected default approvers have to approve the document created. So this means that both of the users selected as default approvers has to approve it. But as we've shown, you are also able to delete or change the approver if you are on the same rule and selected as a default approver. Now here we can see that on this rule we have 2 default approvers, and we have some other users that are also assigned to this rule. This means that the other users also on this rule can approve the same documents as the default approvers. Now, one thing to be aware of before turning on the new default approver settings is to make sure you don't have overlapping rules. This is especially important for the rules which handles amounts. And as you can see here, we've divided the amounts into certain intervals. We know that some systems and some of our customers use a rule for all. So the users that are on the rule for all are able to approve all types of documents or all types of amounts. Now, if you set up a default approver for all and another rule, and you create a document, this will trigger both of the rules. So we ask you to avoid using overlapping rules when it comes to amounts especially. Now, if you want to look at overlapping rules, we have created a report for this. You can go to the context menu and you can press show overlapping approval rules report. Then you'll have a report that shows the overlapping rules. In this case, we have one overlap here between two rules. Then you can go and correct this. Now, another thing to notice is that in the approval configuration, in the context menu, there is also a possibility to add approver to multiple of approval rules. Now you can select one of your employees and you can just add them to the rules you want to. Or you can also select all of them, those available. This is especially useful if you are to update multiple rules and add maybe someone that has access to several of those.